Hey there and welcome. In this video, I'm going to bring you along on a session where I'm going to be working on my 100-day project. This is for 2022. I'm actually altering book covers. And let me show you a few that I've already done. Basically, I'm planning on either painting them or collaging them. It's just anything goes. And some of these I'll work on the actual front of the cover. And then on some I'll work on the back. So you can see this one was actually the back of the cover. So these are just a few of the ones I've done. But I'm basically taking the covers off of books, and I've been asked, 100 covers. I've been collecting books for many years. As a teacher or as an instructor, I would use a lot of the inside pages from old books discarded at the library or used bookstores, and I would take the pages out and use those, but I kept the covers all these years. And so I have quite a collection of different covers of different sizes that I plan on using for this project. And I've also been asked, well, how do you take the covers off? Well, all books are different, but for the most part, I just use a sharp cutting blade, an X-Acto blade, and I will generally just open up into the inside. And if you gently use your blade, you can cut and then kind of get it started. You just have to be really gentle. I don't mind if this goes through the spine because I'm not planning on using this book cover to make a new journal. If I were, then I'd be more concerned about that. But since I'm not, I don't really care if the spine gets trimmed a little bit. And so now the pages can be removed, and now I just have this piece that's left. I love this color. I'm really excited about using this. And then I can take the book cover facing me, and I can gently just push and tear. And like I said, all book covers are a little bit different, and then our books are different. And then I can come in here and trim this if I want. But now I've got the starting point, and I actually like these raggedy edges. I think those look great. So that's how I prepare the covers, taking them off the books. And some of these covers I've noticed, especially on these older books, this one is a fabric. And so I've actually been testing, and it's harder to get the glue to stick to these more fabric covers than the other kind. And I'm using a soft gel gloss. I found this is working the best. I normally like to use glue stick, but this gloss gel seems to be working the best for sticking so that it doesn't lift. So in this tutorial, I'm going to take you along as I alter and work on one of my book covers. And then for this one, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I'm going to make this a journal, a little journal that's attached to the cover. I thought this would be kind of cute. So I've already been prepping, and I have an assortment of pages that are already folded and cut to the right size. So you'll just want to gather up a bunch of your old papers. You can go through books and then just take all the papers and just nest them inside each other so that you have this nice little bundle or signature, as we call this. Now, for the cover itself, the journal cover itself, I've gone through my stash and I've found some papers and different things that I've used, and I've cut them down. This was a project that I did from a class I took, and I think it's Passport to Journal. I'll put a link in the description. And this one was where we created these big paper quilts, and we glued papers together and we did some stitching. And so I thought, well, this looked kind of cool. I think I'll take a piece of that and then I'll use that for my journal cover. I'm going to do some alterations on it because I think it's a little bit dark. And then I have a piece of scrapbook paper that I'm going to use as a support for the inside of this. And I have some ribbon. This is Sari ribbon, S-A-R-I. And a few other little bits and papers. I think I'll use something on the back just to make this look a little bit more interesting. And so a soft gel, a brush, and some scissors if I need it. And I'll need my blade as well to cut a little slit for the ribbon that will then be wrapped around the journal. So I think I've got the concept down, and I'm going to take you along as I create this book cover journal. The first thing I'm going to do is adhere this paper to what's going to be the back of the journal. And this is just some painted paper that I have in my stash. I always make batches of this paper so I can use it later for other projects. For the next step, I want to show you the cover. Again, is just cut from a piece of paper that I had been working on. And I want to add, this is kind of ugly on the inside, so I wanted to make it look a little prettier. So I've taken this piece of scrapbook paper and I've cut it. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this piece in because I like the way that if the journal's opened, this is going to be on the inside. And so this is going to be glued in to the inside. But the first thing I want to do is I need to add the ribbon, because the way I want the ribbon to work is I want it to come around the cover and I want it to tie on the side. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a small slit in the fold where I want the ribbon to go. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and feed that through that slit. So that it will be on the outside. Okay, and then I'm just going to make it whatever length I need to make that work, and that works. I like to make it a little bit longer, and then that way have extra if I need it. Okay, so basically now what we have is we have the ribbon on this side, the ribbon over here, and then we're going to glue this in. So it'll be like this, and then that will come around and tie, okay? All right. And it will also, by doing that, add a little extra secure, actually add a little bit more protection, I guess, for that slit so that it stays in place. All right, so let's make sure I've got this right. I've already trimmed everything. And so now I'm going to use my gel to adhere this paper into this as well. And then I'm going to leave that ribbon over here to the side. Now the scrapbook paper is heavier than this paper that I'm working with, which is good because then it adds a little extra support to it. And I got a little bit low. This little cover that I made is not very well measured, which is fine. Things like that happen, right? Okay, and now we have this coming out. So when it folds over, it'll be like this, okay? And then this will still be. All right, so I just want you to see it as I'm doing it. And if I have any lifting, I'll just go in with a little bit of the gel, which I will, obviously, because this is, and the next thing I'm gonna do while I'm doing this is I'm gonna glue this part down too. That'll actually help a lot to keep everything in place. All right, that looks good. Let's make sure this is glued in. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. All right, so now we have this part. So when we get to the point, we're gonna stitch this in. This will be our journal. And it's going to be glued onto the cover. So this part here will be, we'll use adhesive to glue it down, but we'll stitch everything in place first. But before we do that, I want to alter this cover a little bit. I'm not very fond of some of the dark areas on this, so I want to change it up a little bit. And this is, like I said, this wasn't measured very well, which is kind of fun because it's very organic looking. All right, so I've gone through my stash and I've just been kind of pulling out some brighter bits of papers that I can see how well they work. I want to brighten this up. And this is a bit bright, but I love it. So I think I'm going to put that over this text. It's way too dark and too brown. So I'm adding this element of collage into my cover. Let's see, that works. Doesn't have to cover that part up entirely. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my papers today. Okay. A little bit more. Nice. That already looks better. And then I was looking at some of these other, I think I want to cover up this part too. And I found this piece. I really like that bright color that gives. Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that piece, I think, too. The great thing about saving all of these little pieces that we have in our stash, it's great because we can then use them to hide things in our collages. And all right, I don't like the top part of that, so I'm going to trim that off. Love this turquoise, and the green really plays off nicely from that spot there. Okay, so I think that works great right there. And since this whole thing is going to be glued down, I can either wrap it and glue it, or I can trim it, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just wrap it. We still have the stitching to do, but once everything's dry, it should be fine. And that just gives it even more, some more support there, I think, too. And then that little bit of orange that's peeking out down here kind of goes with this, so I think that looks good. See, it already looks better. All right, but I think this needs something. Now the ribbon will be going across that, but I really think it needs something. And I think it just needs to be lightened up a little bit. So, all right, I think I'm going to use some crayons and oil pastel and some pencils just to kind of unify the greens in this. So I've got this green, it's a green Prismacolor pencil. I have just an assortment of all kinds of different pencils. These are Faber-Castells. So I just really have a whole bunch of different kinds that I like to use. And so I'm just going to go in and make some marks. Here's a charcoal pencil. This is a crayon. This is a Neo Art. They don't make these anymore, but I have to use them because I just love them. Let's go with a little more green. You can just see a little bit of, I think this would be cool if I could pull, maybe make it look a little bit more like it's together. See how that, well, I don't know if you can see that little bit of that teal was right there. And then I'm going to come in and do maybe some white that I think might help a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. Kind of brings some of that more together with those colors. And I think maybe minimize that a little bit too. And maybe we can do that with something like some stripes there, just to kind of tone that down. That's an oil pastel. And then I'll just spritz a little bit of sealer on this that's specific to oil pastels, just to set that. The other things they'll be fine, but you can see that oil pastel rubbing on that. So that's what I'll do. Okay, I think that's good. And then on the other side, I don't like this because, you know, that was consistent with what was here. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down some papers to cover that part up because I don't really like that very much. All right, so now our cover is ready. And then I'm going to go ahead and spritz this, and then I'm going to go ahead and add, we'll go ahead and sew in our pages, and then we'll glue everything to the book cover. We're going to sew the journal pages in using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I've got a needle here that I use. This is my favorite bookbinding needle. I believe it's from Line Co. And I've got waxed linen thread, and I'm using black. And then I have an awl, or a paper piercer, sometimes it's called that. And I can't find my jumbo paper clips. My jumbo paper clips are huge, but I think these paper clips will work for this. You don't have to use them. I find it just makes it a little bit easier to hold everything in place. But what we're gonna do is place our pages into the center. And I'm gonna put one paper clip over here. And since this book is so small, I think these will be fine. And then another one on the opposite side. This just kind of holds everything in place. I don't like to measure, and I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to this kind of thing, at least. All right, so what we're going to do is we want to punch 3 holes. And let me explain. We're going to have one in the middle, and then we're going to have one on each end. So let's do that first. And I'm going to just eyeball the middle, and I'm gently going to squeeze and hold this and push through. So now it's gone through. So I've got my first hole. Now I'm going to come in, doesn't matter which end you go to. I'm going to come in about 1 inch or so, right about here. I think a 3 hole will work for this. You can do a 5, but I think a 3 is going to be good. And then come in roughly about the same distance on this end, okay? So now we have our holes and we're ready to start sewing. We're going to start in the middle, and that means that when we end, we're going to tie off the threads on the inside. All right, so we're going to pull this through, and the way that my needle is threaded is not doubled or anything. It just has this, it's just threaded with a little bit left off here on the end, and we're going to leave this end in the center. You don't need to knot it or anything. It's just loose. Okay, now it doesn't matter which end you go to. So what we do next is we're on the outside. We're going to come up through this hole. So however best it works for you, if you want to turn it over, you can do that. And we're going to come up through that hole. And it doesn't matter which end you go to. You can go to either one. Okay, so now we have our stitch. We've gone from the center to the outside. We've left a tail, and we've come up through this hole. Now, the thing you want to do next is you want to bypass this center stitch and go all the way down to the bottom. All right, so we're going to do that. Now we're on the outside, and the thing we're going to do next is come up through the middle. And by doing that, both of our tails will be in the middle, and we can tie it off. Now this might be a little tricky, and if you need, sometimes I'll even go back through the hole a little bit just to give me a little direction, because you are going through the hole where the needle has already been. And again, I'm not going for super perfection here. Now, I want to show you this too, because this is where you're going to tighten it a little bit. This tail went that direction when we sewed, and then this one came down here and went this way, so we want to kind of pull them in that direction that they were going. Now, I call this the bypass stitch right here. And see how my tails are on both sides? You want to have one of these tails on the other side so we can tie it off. Okay, I'm just going to tighten that again. And now I'm going to go ahead and tie it off. And you can just do like a double or triple knot, whatever makes you happy. And you can leave the tails long if you want, or you can cut them short. It's up to you. You can add beads to them if you wanted to, and you got some options. But all right, so now that has been stitched. All right, so now our journal is done. Our little journal has been sewn and all the pages are in. You can see. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to adhere this to our book cover. And I'm going to go ahead and tie this off just for now, just to have it to where it's not loose. I really don't want to get, I'm going to put the tie up here at the top because I really don't want gel medium to get on it. And actually this is really too long. I need to trim these down anyway, so I'll just trim them a little bit for now. Okay, so the next step, and again, I don't want gel medium getting on this, is we're going to add the gel medium, that's what I'm using, to the outside of the cover of the journal, and then we're going to place it on the book cover. All right, that's the next step. I'm going to go ahead and use this credit card, room key, whatever you have. This is nice for smoothing out. And you can see the seepage, but that's all right. We're going to just wipe it off. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some heavy items, probably some heavy books on this so that it will dry. and then wait till it's thoroughly dry to come back to it. All right, so let's take a look. So we have, that looks so much better there. And so all your pages are in here, blah, 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 and everything is secure. I rather like it. I hope you enjoyed that. And please, if you make any, let me know. I know it's a little odd because it's using book covers, but this is part of my 100-day project this year. So that's what I'm using. But I think, oh, I love, what a great idea to just do something different with the book cover. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.